This is Seahawks Stories, 50th Season Edition, presented by Emerald City Athletics.
Time once again to tell stories, Seahawks Stories, the 50th Season Edition, and along with Ring of Honor quarterback Jim Zorn, yours truly, Steve Raible. And Z, we have lots to talk about because there's not a lot of us who go all the way back to that 1976 season. And we're going to talk about the beginning of that preseason and training camp and all that next episode. But right now, let's just talk about how this team came about. 1974-75, Seattle got the okay to have a National Football League team. Had you ever heard of the Seahawks before you came out here?
Not at all. No. We were still kids.
Yeah.
We were still trying to be at school, going to class, right? And I was at a small college, but you were at a much larger university. But I want to know, in this whole idea before Seahawks, how were you ever labeled a tight end at Georgia Tech? Oh my gosh!
Well, a couple of reasons. I was a wide receiver when I was recruited there.
Okay.
So I was a wide receiver in a pro-style offense my first 2 years at Georgia Tech, freshman year and sophomore year. Then our coach resigned, and Pepper Rogers from UCLA, who you were familiar with at the time because you were going to college at Cal Poly Pomona.
That's exactly right.
I remember that. And so Pepper came in as a Georgia Tech grad, so he was, pretty famous, had done great at Kansas and installed the wishbone at the University of Kansas. Then he goes to UCLA and installs the wishbone there. And you remember who the quarterback at UCLA was?
Yeah, it was not McKay. No, it was who was the quarterback he played at Bishop Almont High School.
Did he really? I didn't know where he played at high school, but I know it was Mark Harmon.
Oh no,
who was
it wasn't Mark Harmon. I didn't remember that. Exactly right, Mark Harmon.
And his father, Tom Harmon, the great Michigan player. His sister, and Mark became a terrific actor and for a lot of years. So he was their wishbone quarterback.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Then Pepper moved back to Atlanta, where he was originally from, and took the job at Georgia Tech and started the wishbone. Well, this is a long story here, but we had a really great wide receiver named Jimmy Robinson, who ended up being a terrific coach in this league with Atlanta and Green Bay and a number of other places. But he was a fabulous wide receiver with us. Pepper wanted to get me on the field too because I was the fastest guy on the team. I was bigger than Jimmy, but we only had generally one wide receiver at a time. So he said, if you can play tight end, we're going to get you on the field. Because remember, in the wishbone,
that was a wing. There was a. Were you in the backfield or were you one of the wings?
I was generally either out wide as a wide out or more of the times than not right next to the tackle as a tight end on the line of scrimmage. And then you have the three backs in the backfield, so that's where all your personnel are and running the football. So he said, if you can be that blocker and all that. So I kind of bulked up to 200 pounds and still kept my speed. And then I played tight end my junior year and senior year. And that's how I ended up out here. Again, a guy that was fast, that could play tight end, that could play special teams, couldn't run routes very well, had to learn how to do all that. But that's why the Seahawks, with a bonus pick, they had a chance to take a flyer on me.
So you worked every day your last 2 years at Georgia Tech with the tight end coach, the O-line coach. You're scooping and you're reaching.
That's right.
You're going to second level.
Looking for that safety coming over the top, going to the inside backer, double teaming down with the tackle.
Here's my next question.
Okay.
If that happened today, would you immediately go into the portal?
If I could spell portal, I would have gone into it. Sure. I mean, I would think. Although I really like Georgia Tech, I like the whole deal. I like the campus. I like the people. I like my teammates. There doesn't seem to be quite as much of that sort of thing today.
You were committed. You were loyal. And you wanted to be a part of the winning tradition.
And we ended up winning some games. And we lost a couple close ones that we should have won that could have propelled us into bowl games. And remember, at that time there were like only 6 or 7 bowl games. There weren't 35 or 40 bowl games like there are now.
When I was at Cal Poly Pomona, the powerhouse, the football powerhouse, I had a wide receiver my junior year. I led the nation in total offense my junior year at Cal Poly Pomona, and I had a wide receiver. His name was Joe Fabian, and Joe was a shorter guy, but he had over 1,000 yards in receptions. our coach had he got fired, got a new football coach, and he brought 2 wide receivers with him. So my wide receiver, who had just gotten 1,000 yards, they wanted to move him to into the backfield and be kind of a wing back, a guy that could run the ball and stuff like that. He quit.
Oh,
he just quit. There was no portal, number one, but he just stopped playing football, and he never played again.
Oh, wow.
He was really a good player, but the other 2 wide receivers were brought in, and they actually did a really good job as well playing. Yeah. But he was my main guy as a junior, and his senior year, he stopped playing, never played again, never played a down football again. Wow. And so, yeah, it's not an exact science, right?
Right.
Thank you, Chuck. You could have exactly. You could have quit yourself, or because there's no portal, or you could have. Whatever,
but if you quit, then you'd have to sit out for a year.
That's exactly right.
And I wanted to graduate on time, and I did in 4 years with a degree from Georgia Tech. So, for those of you out there that are still listening,
just fun facts.
That's right. That's how 2 college guys ended up on the radar screens of a brand new expansion franchise in 1976 called the Seattle Seahawks. So in 74, the city of Seattle and the ownership group was awarded the rights to start an NFL team here, along with Tampa Bay. So 2 teams came in expansion that year, Seattle and Tampa Bay. And the ownership group for we always talk about the Nordstroms because they're the highest profile of the ownership group. But that group, as it was a somewhat equal group with the Nordstroms being the majority owners. But
and you remember the guy that really had the vision initially was Lloyd.
Yes.
Lloyd Nordstrom. And I'll never forget, I was already signed, and I had come up, and they were having that sports year of the, Sportsman of the Year banquet. Yep. And I sat next to Lloyd Nordstrom, went back down after that because I had gone back down to California, and I was getting everything to come up here, and he had passed away in that interim.
So he never really got in Mexico, I believe. I believe that's what happened.
Yeah.
And so you had the Nordstrom, basically the family, but it was headed by Lloyd. But then they had Ned Skinner, Howard Wright, Monty Bean, Lynn Himmelman. That was kind of that group. And Herman Sarkowski. Herman was the managing general partner. Not a lot of people remember that because eventually John Nordstrom became the managing general partner. But Herman had ties to the Portland Trail Blazers. He was a developer, but he loved sports, and he was really a good guy. That whole group was, they just loved the fact
you got to see them.
Yeah,
they
were around us.
And,
they were around all the time. The Nordstroms were out there, but they were a hands-off ownership group, and that lasted all the way through until the team was sold.
That's right.
During the short bearing time.
A couple of more fun facts. Okay. Number one, I thought John Nordstrom, as he came in and really started to love the team, like you say, everybody kind of loved the team. He did a great job in becoming the managing partner after Herman. And Herman was great too. Yeah. But Howard S. Wright. Yeah. Okay. So Howard Wright I got to work for his company on the St. Michel Winery. I dug ditches.
Did you really?
And I scrubbed and I swept for all the guys who really could do the work.
So you rose to your level of competence.
Yes,
is what you
and
did.
Then I got hired. Ned Skinner owned the property that we had our training camp on, right?
Which is now Carillon Point in Kirkland.
Right.
For all of you folks that are new, the waterfront right there in Kirkland was where our first facility was. It was fabulous.
I guarantee you there was still footballs out. When they cleared the land, there were still footballs out in the bushes or sunk in the water somewhere around there. Yeah. But that was an interesting place because it had been a naval yard, and the headquarters there was just remodeled, right? And I worked there as well. And I think it was the Sato Corporation or the Sato Corporation, and I remember pulling nails out so they could paint the wooden cross pieces white so we could have our own locker room. And so we had jobs. You didn't have a job because you probably made more than I did,
I guarantee you I didn't. But I did have jobs.
Yeah,
when we played, I
Right.
had jobs every
Right.
off season. But
Right.
leading up to that, yeah, absolutely. We
Yeah.
all worked, in college, summer jobs and all that. We had to.
Yeah, and it was amazing because that was a place that was so beautiful. I don't even know if we took it for granted because every day you came into practice, you were right on Lake Washington, and Ned owned that. And I'll never forget. Later on, this was maybe 6 or 7 years later. He said, "You know what? I love croquet. I'm going to take part of my own property. I'm going to build 2 croquet courts, and we're going to have a croquet club." And that's what he did. And I had gone over there. I was really interested in all kinds of stuff, curiosity. But I learned how to play English 6-wicket croquet from Ned Skinner.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
That's
I'm not
what-
very good,
Well,
but I do have my own mallet.
you're not. Do you really?
Yeah.
A specially made mallet just for
It's
you? A left-handed mallet?
I bought it in England.
Very good.
Yes.
Look at you.
Yeah.
See, I learn something new about you every
Yeah.
day. Most of it is not terribly interesting, but I learned
Yes,
something new
thank you.
about
And
you
when you
every
come
day.
over, I'll show it to you.
I remember, you know what I remember about that field? A couple of things. First of all, there was the old ferry boat that was docked there that eventually caught fire one night and burned. And I mean, it put up one hell of a fire. You could see it from all around Kirkland.
Pause.
Yes.
Yes, that is true. And when I married my wife, Joy,
Yes.
in 1979,
Mhm.
my father-in-law, who was he worked around Seattle. He was an engineer. He was also an unbelievable artist. He painted that ferry, and we have it still sitting in our entryway.
Do you really?
Yeah, for a wedding gift
I'll be
for
darned.
Joy and I.
I'll be done.
And he's got part of the field, the practice field,
Yeah.
and then that ferry sitting right there.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Well, thank you. I remember we had an assistant general manager in those days when the team first started. Now, NASA, how many employees do you figure are in this building on a regular basis? A couple of hundred, maybe? Yeah, not counting players and coaches.
Right.
Back then, there was a general manager, an assistant general manager, one guy head of the scouting department and a few scouts, 2
We had-
trainers. I mean, there was
We had 10 coaches.
yeah, tops. And we
Yeah.
didn't have a special teams coach. No, Andy McDonald, the running backs coach,
McDonald.
did that.
Right.
Well, Mark Duncan, he was also in charge of the facilities,
Right.
as the assistant GM.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know that he ever negotiated contracts.
I know the story you're telling,
And
too.
so he used to get so angry because the geese would come flying in and they land on the fields. We didn't have like one artificial surface and one grass. They were all grass
Right.
that we had there. And so they would come and they'd poop everywhere, as geese are wont to do. And so he would go out there with a shotgun with blanks in it and fire this gun, and the geese would go flying. And people living within a mile of the facility used to wonder, we're under bombardment.
911.
What's going on? And it's Crazy Mark out there with a shotgun. He didn't shoot the geese. He just fired blanks into the air to scare them away. But that's one of those enduring memories of the facility.
And I have the picture of his gun, and the barrel on this thing was like, it was like 8 feet long. Boom! And I thought he was shooting geese, but yeah, he would point it up in the air, and he would just unload it.
Well, so this
Oh, gosh.
this facility was built, and the reason we were able to get the team here is because the Kingdome was being built,
Right.
and the Kingdome was ready for action in the summer of '76. They held a soccer game there. Pele played in the Kingdome in one of the earliest events there. I remember we all came into the city. Veterans from the veteran allocation came in one weekend, and then this was in like April or May, and then after the draft, and then all of us rookies. And I don't remember if you were with that group or not, with us, all the draft choices and free agents, and there was a bunch of us. And we all came in to the Kingdome, and we had like 2 days of workouts, a
Yes.
Saturday, Sunday.
Okay, so in my timeline, I was the 3rd guy ever signed by the Seattle
You
Seahawks.
remember who the first one was?
Dave Williams.
Yep.
Dave Williams was a wide receiver,
Yep.
and I think he played with the St. Louis Cardinals.
And before that, the Huskies.
Yeah. Oh, he did.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was kind of a guy that was a Northwest guy,
Yep.
and the Seahawks took advantage of utilizing a local name, a name that was familiar, because I was not familiar. I was, nobody knew who I was,
Right.
but he was there, and I remember he really helped me get acclimated. We worked out together. And then there was a quarterback from UPS. Gosh, cannot remember his name. But he was the second guy signed. I was the third guy signed. And I think Jack Patera was the fourth guy signed because I was signed before Jack.
The head coach.
Before the head coach. And then Jerry Rome,
Yep.
who was came from Tulsa, he was the quarterback coach, the tight end coach, and the wide receiver coach. He was your coach as well, right?
Right. He became the offensive coordinator,
And he became,
but he wasn't the first year.
No, that you know who that was?
Sam Bogosian.
Sam Bogosian, our O-line coach.
Yep.
Anyway, these are does the major population here care? Probably not, but you and I are having a lot of fun.
Sure.
But it was very interesting because Jerry had his own, kind of rookie orientation in the Kingdome.
Right.
We worked out in the Kingdome, and so I remember the scouting department saying, "Yeah, we want you to be the starting quarterback." I said, "I would love to be the starting quarterback." And I had my first training camp in Dallas, made the team, got released. You know the story about that. But as soon as I got signed, I think they signed 9 quarterbacks. So we're in training camp, and I'm looking at all these guys thinking, wait a minute, didn't you just tell me you wanted me to be the starter? And then all these other guys, in fact, a couple of veterans.
Yeah, Neil Graff.
Neil Graff and Gary Keithley.
Gary Keithley, right.
Yeah. They had come in from other programs.
Right.
So the battle was on, right?
A guy who was from here, UW, Chris Rowland, quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
He was a rookie my rookie year. You weren't a rookie at that point, but he came in and signed it, and we became very good friends, stayed in touch with him for many, many years. Great guy.
I'll never forget, there was a quarterback that I had beat out in Dallas. He had been there as well, really good athlete. But he got one of his fingers, on his throwing hand, he got his index, his pointer finger cut off. It was only about, it was down to the first knuckle. It was a nub. And he could throw the heck out of the ball. And when I saw him, I thought, oh my gosh, this guy again? I can't remember. Yeah, he had.
Guy missing a finger is going to beat me out, for heaven's sake.
And it was and it was the finger that comes off the ball last, right?
Yeah, right.
And so I'll never forget that. But he didn't last. He didn't last all that long. I think everybody kept looking at his nub on his finger, thinking, do we want him to grip the ball or?
Wow.
Anyway, so yeah, that's. We worked out in the Kingdome, and I'll never forget. Remember how flat it was, and everybody's trying out different shoes, and we had that real short AstroTurf, and you'd be running along. So remember, it was 5/8 inch pad, and then asphalt underneath, and then that short grass, and several things happened when you were sprinting. You would go, you'd be running normal, and all of a sudden it would echo, boom, 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 because it was the Mariners baseball field as well. And they put metal plates because that was the cinder underneath the turf. Right. Second base, first base, third base. And so you'd be pounding over a metal top, and it echoed when you went over it. So anytime, you knew you were on the infield, basically, when you ran over those bases. But, and then, when we would hit the turf, all the burns, knowing how to treat burns in the shower after a game, that was critical.
Oh, goodness gracious. Sharon used to talk about, I'd wake up after a game and my elbows would be stuck to the sheets because you've just rubbed all the skin off your elbows or your knees. And it was just awful. But we paint a picture for you, friends. Here we try to be gentle, but sometimes, listen, this is a contact collision sport. So here we are. We've come in now for these orientations. One of the things I remember was we all went out on a boat, and I think we went over to the island where they have the fish cookout Tillicum or something.
Okay,
maybe.
Yeah.
I seem to remember.
And they had salmon on pieces of on sticks that were over a fire. Yeah,
remember
that was really
they were
good.
trying to let us know that this is the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but I had never been out here. I'd never been west of the Mississippi. So to see, first of all, how beautiful it was, and secondly, to kind of get to know what all these other cultures are all about. I thought it was fascinating. And then, we start to move our way through the summer, and okay, here's your workout routine. Here's what you need to do. And so I was living in Florida, working out with my college teammate, living outside of Tampa, and we would go out and work out every day and trying to get ready.
They didn't have the facility ready yet,
Right.
So, and our weight room is maybe a little bit bigger than this room that we're speaking in, but not much bigger. And I worked out at Bellevue Community College. They allowed me to go into the weight room to work out. And before that weekend that you're talking about with Jerry and all the rookies coming in, I had dropped a 10-pound weight and broke my big toe. So when I came to that, I just had to suck it up. I thought, you know what? If I'm going to make the team, I gotta work. And before that, I had reached down in the snow on my way up. When I was coming up here, I had a friend that lived in Medford, Oregon, and there was snow, and he took me out to show me how beautiful the snow was. And we were walking up the side of this hill, and I put my hand down, and I had sliced my little finger, all the way across, really deep, on a piece of shale rock, just reaching down, catching myself. So he had to take me to the hospital, basically, and he had a guy that he knew, and and he stitched me up. But I had to come to Seattle and show our the trainers, oh yeah, I've already sliced almost my finger off, and then I broke my toe while I was working out.
You were an accident waiting to happen.
My
How the hell did you make it as long as you made it without harming yourself? Seriously. So when we came in for that orientation, that rookie orientation, we stayed at the Four Seasons downtown.
I had no knowledge of that.
Yes.
Did we really?
Yes. And my roommate that weekend was a kid named Andrew Bolton, running back. Andy Bolton. Good running
Number
back.
31
actually.
Or something like that.
Yeah. Good kid, too. Really nice kid.
Yeah.
You remember the name Don Fair?
Yeah, Don Fair.
Don
Great.
wrote for the PI for 1,000 years, sports writer.
Yeah.
He called. In those days, you could just pick up the phone and call to the hotel and say, give me the room of so-and-so. So he called the hotel. He was putting together an idea about doing a training camp diary of a rookie that had a chance to make the team, but, nothing is guaranteed, right? So he calls the hotel. Hey, can you put me through to Andrew Bolton's room? They put him right through to Andy's room. Andy wasn't in the room at the time. I was. And I picked up the phone, and I started talking to Don Fair.
Right.
And Don, after a while, he said, hey, I was going to, frankly, do this talk to Andy about it, but I like you. Would you be interested in doing a rookie diary in training camp? I can't, and I did an article a week for the entire training camp, which seemed like it went on forever over in Cheney, and that's another story for another time. But it was the longest period of time that I ever spent,
Did you start before you got to Cheney, or did you?
I think we started that weekend, and Don kind of ghost wrote it. Okay. We basically did a long interview, but it was all in first person kind of thing. I remember this, and those kinds of things. But I can't tell you how many people over the years have said, I read that diary every week. I always looked forward to reading that. And I kind of credit that as being one of the ways that I ended up moving into the business of broadcasting and news gathering, reporting, all that, because I just had fun doing it, and Don did such a great job with it, and frankly made me look smarter than I ever could have hoped to be. But that was one of those things that came out of training camp. What else?
I thought it was interesting the way we drafted. I mean, you think about, you just reminded me. I thought we had 16 rounds, and you said no. There's 17 rounds. Can you imagine 17 rounds? And I was never drafted. You were a second-round draft choice.
Bonus pick. I would have been a third, maybe a fourth, but the Seahawks had 2 bonus picks in that second round after they took Sammy Green out of the University of Florida, and they took myself and Sherman Smith at the same time. And
well, this was what I wanted to say. Sherman's. Think about how we drafted back then.
Yeah.
So we drafted a tight end from Georgia Tech, who is now going to be a receiver. We drafted Sherman Smith in the second round. Was he after you or before you?
Right before me.
Okay, so here's Sherman Smith, Miami of Ohio. He was the quarterback.
Option quarterback.
He was an option quarterback. So we draft a quarterback from Miami of Ohio. We draft him as a wide receiver.
Yes.
And he becomes our starting running back.
Yes.
How does that happen in today's game, right?
It probably doesn't. And, one of the things I think it gives you a sense of, Jack was the head coach, and Jack had obviously a certain amount of pull, especially when the draft rolled around. Obviously, we took Steve Niehaus. That was one of them. Took two defensive players.
Right.
But Dick Mansberger was the head of player personnel, and he ran the draft and his scouts. And I think that's one of the reasons, knock on wood, that I ended up out here, because there was a scout whose name escapes me now.
There was Chuck Allen.
Yeah.
He was kind of one of the head of college pro scouting or college scouting. But Dick Mansberger, do you know where he was? In 1975, he was a Dallas. And he was a Dallas scout, and he knew where I was, and that's how that's the roundabout way on how I got up here. Yeah. Dick Mansberger kind of went to bat for me as a free agent signee. Yeah. In 1976,
there was a scout back east who came to see me. We didn't have pro days in those days.
Right.
So, but the scouts, they just say, hey, some scouts are going to be here today. And I was running track at the time in the spring. So they said they want to tie me in a 40. And, Boyd Dowler wanted to have me catch some passes for him. He was at Cincinnati as an assistant coach. Sure. Okay, I'll do that before practice or after track practice. So anyway, there was the scout, and his name escapes me now. But from my understanding later, he was kind of one of those pound on the table guys. Oh. This is a guy, meaning me. He said, he's an unpolished guy, but he can do a lot of things for us. And in those days, remember, we didn't have a team. They had to build everything from ground level. And all of the veteran allocation guys that came in, the Norm Evans and Ken Geddes, great people, Al Matthews,
Mike Curtis.
Oh,
Dave Brown.
Gosh. Dave Brown
was a significant, significant
in the Ring of Honor now. But all those guys came in, and I'll never forget it. Kind of jumping way ahead, but after our first year, the end of the season, we were flying back from Philadelphia. I think was our last game of the season in '76, and Jack would sit in the back, and all the players sat up front. And Jack brought a number of us young guys, rookies, maybe you too, I would expect, but brought us back to the back and sat us down. Okay. What is your plan? What are you going to do? Here's what I want you to do. And then he'd say, see all those guys up there in the front? They're not going to be here next year. This team is going to be you guys, you young guys. So it was kind of that awakening that, this is a business, pro football. As much as now they've kind of gone back to, we want to get the feel of people. We want to understand you. We want you to buy in and all that. There's a lot of communication, connectivity. In those days, it was my way or the highway.
That's right.
Roadmap or an apple, and that was pro football.
Yeah, and it was really draining when you think about the NFL. Then we had 17 rounds, but then we also had 6 preseason games to look forward to.
Well, half a college season, none of it counted.
Yeah, none of it counted, and then the strategy of who's going to play. So you're practicing in these two-a-days, and you're getting ready, but you didn't know, how it was all going to work out. Well, you were one of the staples, I think, in you, Don Clune, and then at the end of training camp, Steve Largent. Right? Because, and I just read that we traded, he was a 4th-round draft choice in Houston, and we gave up an 8th-round draft. I was thinking, wait a minute, there's no. Oh yeah, I had to rethink that. An 8th-round draft choice for Steve Largent,
and I'm sure Jerry pounded on the table.
Yeah, the last 2 preseason games he was with us.
Our last story about being here before we go to the training camp section, which we're going to talk about next, and Cheney and all the rest. I've told you this story, and Steve knows it too, and it's sort of apocryphal. And how much of it is actually true, but it's what I heard many, many years ago. So we had come back from Cheney, and we were out here after the 4th preseason game. I think
everybody broke camp after the 4th preseason game.
We came back here. We were staying in the dorms at Seattle U, and they would bus us, or we had our cars, and we could drive over here to Kirkland to practice. And we trade for Largent. And I remember Jerry Rome saying in our meetings, we got this, we just traded for this guy. He's a really good guy. He's a good receiver. He'll fit in here. You'll like him a lot.
I heard the
kid.
same story.
And so
That's right.
we're out practicing and getting ready for our 5th preseason game, whoever the hell that was.
Yeah.
And you and I are working after practice. Some of the receivers, Sam McCullum was probably out there with us at the time, and Clune. He was nursing a knee injury. He was coming back from a knee.
Right.
So it's why he didn't start real early in the season.
Right.
And why I did, frankly, and that didn't last long when he got back. But anyway, you and I are throwing passes. Well, so I'm running what do they call it now, a dig. It was just a quick slant.
Slant.
And I'm running a 6-yard slant route and caught some loose turf. It wasn't a great field early on. It took a while for it to catch up. Anyway, so I start to slip, and you throw the ball like 100 miles an hour, and it bounces off my hands. I think it hit my helmet, too, and went straight up in the air. And Steve had arrived and was standing on that back porch area of our facility. Remember, you had to go down the steps to get to the field. And he's standing there with like Gary Wright and maybe John Thompson or whatever. They're standing there watching. And he sees this. And he turns to somebody standing next to him and he says, I can play here. And I'll never, ever forget that. And he was so right. He was so right. And it became a freaking Hall of Fame career. And you were the start of that. Dave Craig was the finish of that with his career. And to this day, he is our dearest friend and like a brother for both of us.
Just think about how the team formed back then.
Yeah.
And the Seattle fans were so excited because we had the Kingdome, and it was an indoor facility.
Yeah.
There was no weather issue at all. And I remember, we just parked in the parking lot.
With the fans?
And you walk, hey, have a good day. Have a good game, Rabes. Thanks. You're just walking in and out with the fans.
Yeah.
And that was incredible. You just parked in the parking lot with the group.
Yeah, yeah. And then when you came out.
And you came out.
After the game, and of course we didn't win many games that first year.
You would have thought we nearly got into the playoffs, and we had won 2 games.
Yeah.
We were 2-12.
Yes.
Because there was only 14 regular season games.
Yes.
2-12, and the fans never, they were just excited. And I think the way I saw it way back then was there's that learning curve. You have to become educated about what's really going on in football. That's what one of the beauties about the fans today in Seattle or in the Northwest. People know what they're seeing on the field, and they know how to express themselves.
Yeah. So that's how the franchise kind of started. The investment from a group of civic-minded folks who wanted to see NFL football here, the fans who came in and voted on the name, the Seahawks, the putting together of the team, the hiring of Jack Patera and the coaching staff. And here we go, we're off and running in 1976, and we all show up in Cheney, Washington for that first training camp in July when it was like 100-plus degrees. When our next Seahawks Stories rolls around, we're going to talk about that first training camp and subsequent training camps after that, what it was like to go to Cheney in the dead of summer here in the Pacific Northwest, all so that we could bring you Seahawks football. That's next time. Jim, thanks.
All right. Thank you, Steve.